If you want to set up a new operation, an organic operation, you're going to probably spend $15 million just day one, just getting set up.
Episode 8. Shawn Godwin, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Listen, I appreciate you asking me.
Of course.
It's going to be fun.
If you want to kick it off with an intro on yourself, sometimes I forget to do that for the guests, but that would be cool to hear in your own words.
Okay, so I'm Shawn Godwin. I actually grew up here in Conway. As a working, or I actually being with a family that was in the construction business. I kind of grew up around it, you know. So in middle school and high school, my days were spent in the summertime basically just working in construction. And my grandfather, back in, I guess it was the mid '60s, started a little small asphalt paving company. He started the business. I guess it was obviously in the '60s. The telephone companies started taking rural telephone lines out to the rural market because there was no telephone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and how they did that was they had to physically bury cable throughout to the rural market. When they did that, they would always cut the asphalt driveways of those everybody's individual houses as they took it down the road. And so he got a contract to basically patch those actually little patches on somebody's asphalt driveway. So we used to travel around all over South Carolina doing that asphalt patching.
Wow.
Yeah, and so as that kind of grew and obviously kind of pulled things back in, he was doing that kind of as he started in the 60s, and he was still kind of doing it when I got into it when I was in middle school and stuff.
Right.
But literally growing up in that business as a kid, it was hot, it wasn't very flashy. It was not a cool job to have. All my buddies were lifeguarding or they were at the water parks and and I'm out there shoveling asphalt. So when I got kind of through high school and kind of decided, all right, I'm going off to college. Nobody in my family ever went to college, so this is going to be my way out of the construction business.
Right.
It was an opportunity to say, okay, let me get into something else. And I always liked numbers and so I felt business or some type of finance is what I would want to get into.
Right.
And so I went to University of South Carolina up in Columbia. Mm-hmm. Enjoyed it. Spent way too much time there. I was there for 5 years, and at some point my parents were like, all right, it's time for you to get out.
You played volleyball too, right?
I did. Yeah. They had a good club team there, and I grew up playing here a good bit. And when I went to South Carolina, I did that as well. So loved it. It was. But again, I spent too much time at South Carolina. At some point, my dad was like, all right, it's time for you to come back and go to work. And so I finally graduated, and I got an opportunity to work at a bank locally, and they made me an offer. I think their offer was like $18,000 a year or something like that. And my dad was like, well, if you want to come work with us, I think I'll pay you $20,000.
Yeah, there you go.
And I was like, I'm in. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I kind of got into this space. And my dad had a good company, and he had. Him and my uncle, they were in the business working with my grandfather. They had bought bought my grandfather out, and the two of them kind of got in the business together. And this was, probably in the 80s or something, they bought him out. And they were working together, and as two brothers, they basically kind of butted heads constantly and didn't see eye to eye on everything. So in, I guess, the late 80s, 87 time frame, they split up, and they actually created two separate companies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so in 87, my dad formed what is now Palmetto Corp, and then my uncle at that time, he formed a competitive company. Anyway, so in the early 90s, 93 is when I graduated from college.
Yep.
And I came back in and worked with my dad directly, and it was two of us, and then we had about 25 employees, and cool. We were doing asphalt paving and same type of thing. It was really more parking lots and small little roads and that type of thing. Only here in Conway, Myrtle Beach,
interesting.
Georgetown area. And we did that for a good while, and it got to be a point where I realized that you basically had to wear every hat in a true small business. And even though we had 25 employees, you were out there basically, trying to sell a job. You're trying to convince somebody, hey, let me do that asphalt paving for you. Then you had to come in and you had to actually get the work done. You had to actually be out there every day doing it. And then, then you had to go beg the guy to pay you. And then you bring the money in. Then every Friday you're basically trying to get payroll paid. So you're kind of wearing every hat, which was great because you got to experience it all and see it all and understand it all. But it's tough to basically ever get to where you can grow and expand when you're doing that. So we slowly were able to add some more people, add salesmen, add different resources where we could kind of focus on other things. And in the late 90s, 99 to be exact, we decided we wanted to expand into a new market, which was in Florence. And the reason we wanted to do that was because there was only one competitor in that market.
Paving competitor?
Only one paving competitor. And at this time, we're solely focused on asphalt paving.
Got it.
Somebody else would move all the dirt and lay all the storm drain, do all that stuff, and they just call us in when they needed paving.
Right.
So in 99, I moved to Florence and set up a paving operation there. We bought an asphalt manufacturing plant, installed it there in Florence. And then I worked in that area for about 4 or 5 years, living there during the week, and I still had a house here in Myrtle Beach that I would come back, and so I was kind of doing both roles. And then when you open up a new manufacturing plant there, obviously you're hiring people. We were fortunate to start getting some more government jobs. That's one thing we kind of did that we hadn't done in the past is start bidding on more government contracts. Typically the margins in that business are pretty thin, but you feel very comfortable. You're going to get paid. They pay on time. It's a consistent way of going about doing things. And the expansion and growth allowed me to basically add more pieces to the puzzle where so you could have some marketing people, and you could have sales people, and you could have people in the office handling payroll. You could do all those things and not have to have your hands on every piece of the business. So that expansion was good. And then we basically did the same thing in 2006. We expanded up into the kind of the Sumter market.
Is that the Bishop?
That's what the Bishopville plant is. That's exactly right. And typically what happens in our business, in the asphalt paving business, is you have an asphalt plant. And that's the plant that actually makes all the asphalt. Right. We just kind of takes those rock and the sand and the tar and just blends it all together, makes it hot. And then we take it from there, put it in a dump truck, take it out to the job site, put it down, and boom, now the traveling public has that product to drive on. So we expanded to that Bishopville plant in 2006. Cool. And then about 2 years later, the world crashed, and we, even though we did a lot of government stuff, the same thing happened in our space. You got to where basically government didn't have as much money, so they weren't bidding on as many projects. There was a good bit of competition, so the market slowed down. And then basically for the next 7 or 8 years, you basically had to struggle to same thing, figure out how to make payroll, keep everybody busy, all that stuff. The same thing the residential home builders or the commercial real estate people, all the things that they were all dealing with, and then just the normal people. We in our space were dealing with the same thing. Fortunately, the government decided, all right, how are we going to prop up this economy? We're going to put some money out there to try to get some government projects, and they did. Got it. And fortunately, you've heard the term, we'll call it shovel-ready projects. And luckily for us, those typical shovel-ready projects are jobs or asphalt paving projects, jobs that you can, it's an existing road, it's falling apart, let's quickly just get out there and put some new asphalt down on it. Right. And there were a lot of those projects being bid kind of in that, I guess you'd say 2013, 14, 15 time frame. And some of that stuff is what helped us kind of continue to grow a little bit and kind of get our feet back underneath us. Wow. And so we, like I said, we struggled, from that 2008 time frame to 2014 time frame, and so we had, the plant in Bishopville and the one in Florence and the one here, and it was like, all right, let's just try to figure out how to survive. Fortunately, things continued to kind of expand and grow, and we bid on a large project up in the Columbia market. We could kind of reach it from our Bishopville asphalt plant. Typically, we work about I guess about a 60-mile radius
around the
our
plant.
Yeah, because you can, once you make the asphalt, you put it in a dump truck, you can haul it about that far before it's not good anymore. So, so anyway, so we bid on that project. We were successful on a big project.
Yeah.
And then we realized that, hey, maybe this Columbia market, could be a good thing for us as well. So we kind of did the same thing.
Wow.
And this was in 2016.
Did you get a plant there? Because you have 5 right now, right?
We have six right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 6 now, but that was our 4th plant. So
wow.
we went into Lugoff, which is right outside of Columbia, and we set up a new asphalt plant, a whole full operation, office, shop, and all that stuff in that market to just kind of work that whole Columbia market.
Wow.
So we picked up that one big job. And then we just kind of worked that market around there, and we've been there since 2016.
Wow.
And it's a good market, a little more competition up there.
Absolutely.
But there's actually more stuff going on up there as well, And plus you can again work that 60-mile radius around the whole plant.
Yeah.
Whereas here at the beach, you actually lose part of that 60 miles from the ocean.
Water.
Yeah, exactly. So you got a bigger market, bigger swath of area you can work up in that Columbia market. So, and again, like normal business, you're hiring people, firing people, trying to find good help. You're losing good help. You hire somebody who you think's good, and they work for a little while, and then they don't. So the normal things you have with any business you have in this space as well, and you're dealing with guys that graduated high school and they came straight to work for us. You got guys that went to college, came to work for us. I mean, so you get a good swath of a bunch of different people and different types of people. Some more educated than the other, but all good people.
Yeah.
So we did that, and man, things been going good in Columbia. So we in I guess it was 2020. We decided to start looking at the upstate market.
Cool.
So kind of that Greenville, Spartanburg area. And there was a competitor that was up in that area that decided that they wanted to sell their business. So we put a bid in to buy that company.
Yep.
And we got outbid by kind of a larger regional competitor. But we had done a bunch of due diligence in that market. And since they were already in that market and they bought out a competitor, there was still one less competitor than there used to be.
Sure.
So we decided, we didn't get the bid to buy that company, but let's do it organically. Let's basically go out and we'll find our own piece of property. We'll basically go put our own asphalt plant up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we'll work that market just independently as opposed to taking on an existing manufacturing site and existing workforce.
Interesting.
So we did that. We started doing it in 21. As far as bought the property, and then I guess it was in last year. I guess it was in August of last year that asphalt plant came online, and last year we kind of started hiring people in that area, and then basically since August of last year we've been working out of that facility ever since.
Which one is that? Is that Greer or is that a green?
That's Greer, yeah. So that's a greenfield site that's right in between Greenville and Spartanburg.
Yeah.
So we use that same 60-mile radius, so we can work all into Spartanburg, work all into Greenville from that centrally located site.
Going to be a lot of work there too, because that area is growing. I mean, they're all growing. Columbia is growing. Down here is growing. It's an amazing background, and I already have what feels like 30 questions kind of in the hopper. But one thing I don't think I did well enough is intro you and the company and your role, right? So you're CEO of Palmetto Corporation, and the company itself now, then you're saying just did paving and mainly asphalt maintenance. Yeah. Now, plethora of site work, if you want to talk briefly about all the services you have. And then I would like to rewind a little to kind of like that 1993 window till now, because you had 25 employees then. Now, from what I've read, over 600. Revenue is grown astronomically as well. So I would like to hear the kind of almost the step by step a little bit of like what growth really was like, because you said, hey, it was just like any other small company, you're doing a lot of everything, right? And that's hard to grow out of. And it's hard to go from you're doing the books, you're doing the sales, and like, hey, we're down a guy, I'm going to pick up a shovel too, to only focusing on bigger stuff, right? Like, how do you keep a crew working, a good crew that you have? Because this business is tough where if you run out of jobs, you lose your folks. So anyways, like if we rewind back, or I guess talk about your overall services today, and then we can chat about that.
Yeah, so again, early on, it was really just focused on asphalt paving.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that sometimes the guys who actually controlled the whole job was the guy who basically did the whole job.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so meaning that they would take a piece of property and maybe they're working for a developer, and the developer was, maybe they're putting in apartments or building a subdivision or whatever, and they would basically handle the job from the very beginning. So the developer would hire that person, and he would go in, maybe he cleared the property, maybe he cut all the roads in. And then most of those guys don't do any asphalt paving, so they would just call us, right? And we'd go in at the very end, we'd do all the asphalt paving is done. But they would control it. They controlled the money, they controlled who they used in asphalt paving, they controlled everything, right? So, early on I was like, that's fine, and I like that space, it's good, but there's no reason why I can't expand into that space as well.
Right.
So slowly we kind of started doing that. We hired some crews that did maybe some clearing or maybe some moving of dirt or laying of storm drain, and we kind of did it slowly as particular jobs would come up. We'd pick up a job and maybe we had thought about maybe subcontracting a portion of the job out to somebody else. So we're like, we can do it ourselves. So we'd basically hire forces and do it ourselves, and we did that. So now, over the years of kind of expanding and growing, now it's a scenario where, we can handle the whole site ourselves. From the survey end of the job, we bought out a surveying company years ago, or a couple of years ago, and so we can survey the site, we can clear the site, we can go in and we can cut all the roads and we can dig all the retention ponds, we can lay all the storm drain, we can get it all grade, we can go in and we do all the concrete ourselves, so we'll put all in the curb and gutter and the sidewalks, and we'll do all that stuff ourselves as opposed to either one subcontract to other people or being the guy who just comes in at the end and does the asphalt paving. So it's a kind of a niche scenario where we can do it all because there's very few companies that can do all of it.
Absolutely.
And what it allows you to do is it gives you a little bit of competitive advantage sometimes.
Yeah.
If it's a certain unique job that nobody really wants to do, or maybe they're like, man, I really only want to do this piece, or I really want to do on this piece, then we can go in and just bid on the whole job. And it also works a lot better for the developer because the developer knows if they hire us, they're going to be dealing with the same guy the whole time. Because, there were scenarios where we would get into where I'd have a developer call me and they're like, hey, they're saying the reason you haven't finished the job is because, you're off on other projects doing something. Like, well, that's not the only job we have, so whereas if you are if you're the one who has the whole job, everything's relying on you and I can't blame it on anybody else. Yeah. I've got to look at, basically at myself for that. So anyway, the expansion of that, you're adding more people, you're taking on more opportunities and it just opens up more doors for other things.
Absolutely. Two questions. One, do you think doing the full service site work helped quality control in any way? Because your guys are doing all of the work as opposed to for sure the construction business as a whole. It's tough, right? Because you have to work with literally other companies on the same dirt, which is very challenging.
It's no different than when you're building a building. Typically, you don't have one guy who's doing everything within the building of the building. You got all these different subs coming in, and this guy's he wants to be on this schedule, and that's on this schedule. Well, when you're doing everything, it's so much easier to kind of coordinate and plan. And again, really, it comes to accountability because you can't really blame it on anybody else. It's easy for the prime contractor, the general contractor, say, well, I would have it finished, but my electrician, he's just slow today or whatever. He won't be here for 2 weeks. That just backs everything up.
Right.
Well, with us, we can't use that excuse because it's us. So there is some advantages to that from a quality standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint. We still screw up and make mistakes like the rest of them, but we have to own them. It's us, and then it's a scenario where it just kind of works better that we see.
Absolutely. Yeah. How hard was it early on to move into from being an asphalt guys to moving into site work? For me, one of my first mentors and a guy I've learned the most from in business almost, guys in Maryland I grew up around, they have huge site work and demolition business, and I learned a lot about it from him just being around him, and it's a hard business. It's a very scary business. There are so many things that can go wrong, like we talked about a little bit. Like employment's tough to keep good employees, and like jobs aren't year round. Like you have these jobs that peter out, and everything costs a ton of money. The trucks are hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, right? There's so many barriers to entry for the business as itself. Let alone the cost barriers, you have knowledge barriers, but also relationship barriers. When you're talking about getting site work jobs, everything in real estate or anything a developer is going to give to you, they're going to give to the guy that they trust the most because it's their job or their money tied up in it. So in site work or paving, very relationship based, and you have a lot of companies, especially we have a lot of good companies locally that have been doing it for a long time. How hard was it to get a footing in site work compared to other folks?
I would say probably how we originally got into the grading side of it was is all government stuff is just all low bid. Yeah. So in that scenario, it's kind of like we're like, all right, here's the deal. This is a government job. Maybe it's for the school, Horry County school system, or maybe it's for Horry County government doing something, or maybe it's for the DOT directly or whatever, So in those scenarios, we were able to basically just bid on the job. We were low bid, so they had to basically give us the job, basically. Yeah. And then once you've got the job, well, then you can hire the people, and you can get the, and when it comes to the people, you want to make sure that you're obviously hiring somebody who's extremely experienced in, especially if it's something that you aren't, as good at or don't know as much about. I mean, I've been around this stuff forever. Sure. But actually, out there doing it every day on the grading side, I just didn't have as much experience. So I just had to hire really good people that could kind of, handle that for us. Yeah. But we kind of stepped in with the government side of it, got some of those government contracts, got our feet, and created some, scenarios where you had jobs that we had completed that were government contracts. So then when I'm stepping into a room with a developer or whatever and say, hey, we did this job, I could sell it for based on that. Hey, we did this job. We built this one over here. We did that. And so probably started more from the government side, from a low bid, and then worked into the negotiated scenarios where somebody takes a little chance with you because you haven't done anything with them before or whatever. And sometimes just price. And sometimes the developer goes, you know what, they're cheaper. I'm gonna take a chance on them. That's not always the best thing, but I'm gonna take a chance. You be successful, and then one developer recommends another, and one thing. Another. But in general, that's still probably not our biggest space. Our biggest space is still the government space. Yeah. I mean, if you look at asphalt or site work, asphalt's always going to be bigger. It's just a component of cost, and it's asphalt's probably 80% of what we do, and only 20% is the site work. Jobs or revenue, like 80%. Revenue. Okay. Yeah, revenue. Yeah, I may have more resources tied up on grading jobs because they just take longer to do. There's just more variables. One thing and another. Yeah. But revenue wise, the paving will outweigh it always. Yeah. So, going from the 25 employees and having just your brain kind of spread out everywhere, it's remarkable that a lot of guys can start companies very well, right? And then they can grow them a little bit, or they can double, or they can go from 0 to 1, right? You can go from an idea to 10 employees, and then maybe someone else. To be in your shoes, and I've always admired you from afar. I don't know you too well, but the business is so difficult, but to take anything from 20 people to 600 and in an industry like paving, I don't know the most about, but it's ultra competitive because there's so many big players and a lot of money that's in this space. Mm-hmm. How did what were the challenges with scaling the business, and what did you land one big job, or was it acquiring asphalt plants that made it possible to scale? Yeah. And then how did you repurpose your time along the way? How do you go from, hey, I need to be here and almost helping do some of the work, or being with employees, to having a bigger vision and tackling larger projects? It's a hard change. Yeah, what kind of allowed us to expand a little faster and to be a little bit more unique is the asphalt plants. And the reason being is because there are some other competitors that do from an asphalt paving side of things, but most of them are smaller. They don't have asphalt plants, so having you can't play as well. And they're having to buy material from me, So from a cost standpoint, realistically, I should be able to do it cheaper than they can, and we still play in the small space. I mean, we'll still do pave an asphalt driveway for somebody, or we'll still do we pave parking lots. We do it we have crews paving parking lots every day. so competing against somebody else who's paving parking lots, in theory, we should be able to do it cheaper than we do because they're having to buy a product from me and mark up in one thing and another. So we still play in that space, but we're also playing in the space of paving interstates. So and you got everything in between. But when we would go into a market and we would large investment, but it's kind of one of those deals where you're taking profits from as you kind of grow and you're kind of rolling it forward and we're investing. And a lot of what we've done is just reinvest back in the business. It's not like we've taken money out and put it over here. We've just literally have rolled it back into the business and expanded into every one of these different markets I've discussed. Yeah. And we've started by basically putting an asphalt plant and then work around that. And then you put the plant in and then you hire a crew and then you bid on work in that area. Right. And it just kind of,
organic in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
But you almost have to buy your way into a market.
Sometimes you do. Yeah.
So one thing I was thinking about on the way over here. So when it comes to the asphalt plants, how often are they for sale? Because, is it a finite amount of them? Because I know you said you had one built as well, but how long? How does that deal process work? Yeah. I think that would be cool to talk about a little bit.
Yeah. So every plant that we've installed, we've done it organically. Okay. Yeah. Meaning that we have either bought a brand new, and so what you do is there's people who manufacture them. And then you buy them from their factories and you ship them to wherever your location
almost
is.
like a prefab, they're building it, you're installing it.
Yeah, and then once you put it all up and it's together, and then basically it's just a bunch of moving parts and motors and different things and conveyor belts and bins, all these things. So sometimes there'll be an existing player that's in a market. They've been there for 20 years. A lot of them are family-owned businesses, and they don't have a succession plan. And the guy's been doing this forever, and he's just like, I'm out, And sometimes those scenarios will come up, and they're like, all right, well, let's take this, let's sell this thing. Who basically is interested in buying it? And sometimes they have a market share. They've been there forever. Yep. They work that 60-mile radius, and maybe there's 2 or 3 other guys that are in that market as well. But they've developed a pretty good rapport with all these other people who hire them to do services. Yeah. But they're ready to go out. And so in those situations, you can kind of step in and you can go in and buy their assets. Right. You kind of buy their business and one thing or another. And like I said, the deal I mentioned earlier up in the upstate of South Carolina, this was a guy who, same scenario, but he had multiple plants in that area, and they were kind of spread out. He had one over in Spartanburg, another in the other side of Greenville, and so it would have been a good opportunity to kind of really just plug and play into that market. Right. Taking over, his employees come on work for you, and you taking all of his assets, and then you get out there and just kind of manage it. And using the existing workforce that he has. Yeah. That didn't work for us because we got outbid for it. So we had to do it organically. So, as I discussed earlier, we basically just bought a plant. We hired, bought the plant. It came down here. We put it all together. We hired a guy who was experienced in that market, who lived in that market. Now he's our manager up there, and he's our business unit leader that kind of oversees it. He knows people, so he goes and hires Fred, and Fred's like, I can hire Jim because they like working for me. Sure. And then next thing you know, just kind of, so, literally we started hiring people in that market in, I guess we'll call it January of 20, what is it, 23 now? So 22. Yep. Now we have over 100 employees in that market. Wow. Yeah. So, and really it was because from an opportunity standpoint, there's just a lot of government contracts and a lot of opportunities in that market. And we were able to step in there just from a timing standpoint. And really how it's made it happen is the guy that we hired to be our business unit leader in that market. He knows all the players up there. We were able to go in and get a good location for our asphalt plant. Wow. And when you know the people and he's a likable guy and he's smart and everybody those are the guys that attract other people to come Absolutely. Work. That's kind of what the key is finding somebody. I don't know anybody up there. Of course. It's not me who's growing the business. Right. It's him. So it's like he's got his own little business up there. You know. In the same scenario that's the same scenario we have in Columbia and Florence and Sumter and down here. We let those individual business unit leaders kind of own that business and own that territory, just like it's theirs. Right. So we give them that flexibility to be able to hire and fire and add and all we are is a conduit to maybe it's more equipment, it's back office financial resources.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about payroll. They don't have to worry about, all they got to worry about is focusing on growing the business, and looking at opportunities and deciding, okay, hey, I think we should be over here. I think we should be here. I think we should bid on that job or don't bid on that job, and then we kind of dive in and we just, we give them insight, give them help and one thing and another, but they all still work underneath the Palmetto Corp umbrella. And that's what's allowed us to be able to expand and grow. Because I can't do it from here. I've got to have those resources there doing it. Yeah.
That's insane. That was one of the questions I was going to ask. So at these hubs, right? We have these businesses that really are under the big umbrella here. Mm-hmm. Are they thinking like they have their own business development team in a way that like are they bidding their own work at their own?
Yeah, so
are they acting on their own saying, hey, we should bid this? Or are they coming back to you and saying, like, is there a lot of back and forth of what the vision is for that location and what jobs to do? Or do you trust them? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so again, typically we're doing government stuff.
Oh, right.
Okay. So we're aware of all the government stuff.
Got it. Okay.
There's resources you can pay for that find all these.
Shows you all the jobs.
Yeah, shows all the jobs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll basically look at it and go, hey, and the guy in the upstate, his name's Mark, and we're like, hey, Mark, man, this job he was coming up, this redoing an airport over here in Greenville, and this is the scope of the job. What do you think? He's like, yeah, from a timing standpoint, I think I could fit a cruise in to go get that done. Let's go bid on it. Yeah. So then they'll basically include their thoughts. All right, it's going to take me 5 days to do it. I need this, and this, and we'll put the bid together. We'll submit it. And if we're low on it, we turn it over to him. He goes and builds it, and it's done. Okay. Right. So that's one aspect of it. Okay. The other aspect of it, because we also work for developers and site work contractors, all these people who don't do paving. Yep. So then what they have is they have their own internal salesperson, that kind of works directly with the bid, and he's out there just kind of talking to people, and he's like, hey man, we'd love to do your asphalt paving for you, because it's a site work guy who moves all the dirt and does all the clearing, but he didn't have paving, so we'll basically go in and do it with paving. So they have their own kind of sales team that's looking for those specific types of things. Yeah.
How hard is what do you think the hardest part of the business is, just for the big government jobs for asphalt? Because at least for the little bit I've been exposed to the business, the deal cycles are very long. Things can get hung up and it can take years. And then like sometimes and it's so much money at stake and the deals are so big that, if there's ever a snafu in some way, shape, or another, there could be litigation sometimes for some of these bigger jobs. So what trickles up to you, but like, where do you feel the most pain, or where do you think, man, like the asphalt business is just difficult? Like, what are those things?
Yeah, so it's actually a very technical business, and from a quality standpoint, it has to be, you have to know what you're doing, okay? And fortunately for me, I've got some really good people working for me that are really smart when it comes to asphalt paving.
What do you mean by technical in what way? Like that the grain or the mixture of that asphalt has to be perfect,
The mixture has to be perfect. Okay. And not just the mixture, but once it shows up on the job and how you put it down. Okay. It's so different on how you compact it and how you install it, that if you don't know what you're doing, basically it's going to be a complete failure, because again, you're going to put it down, the government entity is going to look at it and go, yeah, that doesn't meet our spec, got to take it right back up. Whoa. And listen, we've had tons of jobs over the years where we just didn't do it right. I mean, we got jobs I'm working on today, we didn't do it right. Wow. And so because of that, we're having to take it back up and redo it again. Yeah. And from a financial standpoint, obviously it's a huge burden on the company, and it's tough for a small guy to be able to take on that risk. So a smaller guy is like, man, if I go there and do it wrong, I can't afford to have to take it up and put it back down. Right. I mean, just like airport jobs and interstate projects, those things are extremely technical, extremely difficult, and if you don't have a good team that knows what they're doing, it can put you out of business quick. So fortunately, we have some smart people, and that's how we've been able to play in that space. Yeah. And if you can play in that space and you're good at it, there's money to be made. Right. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can lose your shirt. Yeah. So.
And you need, in some bit, like a pocketbook to play this game, just because lawyers will bleed you out, or
from a liability standpoint. Yeah. As soon as we take any DOT road that's out there, and they decide they're going to award a contract for you to make that road better, okay? Yep. As soon as they sign that contract and we put our signs up and says, hey, we're going to be coming out here, we own the road.
Oh.
Yeah. So now any accident that happens on that road from that point on until we give it back to them, it's on us.
Oh my God.
And it is constant. I mean, a guy, runs off the edge of the road because he's drunk and dies in a ditch, they're coming back on us.
Oh.
Every bit of the liability is on us. So we have to make sure while we own that road that it's in as good a shape as we can make it until we actually go in and repair it. Maybe it's putting another layer of asphalt, whatever it is, we're basically on the hook to make sure that we do it. So to your point, liability wise, it's constant, and we're self-insured up to a certain amount. We have a legal team that's working on those type of things all over the state every day.
Yeah.
And again, for a small guy, you can't do that.
No, you can't.
It's
afford
not
possible.
that. Yeah, and even for us, that's why one asphalt plant you're okay. We roll things back into another one.
Yeah.
And now every time you expand, every time you grow, that's more liability, that's more things, that's more opportunities. So yes, the growth is great, but it obviously comes with that much more risks. That comes and you got we'll probably by this time next year probably almost 1,000 employees.
Holy cow!
And by the time you get to there, there's just that many more pieces out there basically, and then that much more liability, a lot more opportunity. Every time there's a guy out there that's working, that's making you money, that's great. Yeah. But there's more liability, everything associated with with that. So.
Wow. Speaking about expansion, and this is like kind of a question for you as an entrepreneur. How do you make decisions on where do you want to expand? Like, do you feel like you can see, hey, this market is growing? Like, are you doing a large feasibility study? Are the decisions you're making backed by data? Or for a lot of folks, right, that are making business decisions, it's a gut decision, or there's a big job that draws you there. Like, hey, this is a good deal on this asphalt plant.
Sure.
We should acquire it. Like, how do you make your decisions for expansion? Like, what's your criteria? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. So one, we look at it from a market standpoint. We're like, all right, is it a growing market?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Like right now, we're looking at the Rock Hill market. So we're like, okay, Rock Hill's good. Charlotte's growing. Everything seems to be good. Okay. So we think that's a good market. We're not in that market. Okay?
Yep.
So the next thing we go is, what kind of competition is that market? Is there 20 guys that are doing the same thing I'm doing? Well, if there is, they don't need any more people up there. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's okay, it's okay market, it's not great. So then you look at it and go, well, is anybody that's in that existing market that maybe is interested in selling? Maybe there's three guys.
The business as a whole, or the asphalt plant, or is that one and the same?
Well, we have no interest in just buying an asphalt plant unless they're getting out of business, because we basically would want to buy the whole business.
Got it.
Whatever they're doing, we would want to buy all of it. That way if you buy somebody out that's in the market, that's one less competitor, right? And again, most markets really only the amount of competitors there is typically all they really need. Because the market just kind of handles itself sometimes. So perfect scenario, you've got somebody that's you want to move into that market because it's good. There's somebody that's in that market that wants to sell. Yeah. You go in and buy that competitor out, and then boom, you're all of a sudden you're in that market. And hopefully they've got a good team they've already built that's there. That existing team they just get their paychecks from a different person now, and then they keep running, they keep growing, everything's great. You just kind of tweak them a little bit to make them a little bit better. Maybe they can give you some insight on some things you're doing wrong to make you better. So you kind of take all that and so that's the perfect scenario. But if that's not an option, then you look at it and go, okay, well, there's three guys up there, whatever, and you're like, can it stand one more competitor? Yeah. If you say, well, maybe it can, who knows? Right. Maybe the competitors there, they're not any good, or maybe they're, maybe they're whatever. Maybe it's a scenario where they're losing people. You've got people that you kind of. This is a pretty small industry. We kind of know all the players everywhere. They're like, yeah, man, I'm working for Fred up here, and I can't. Fred's just, I don't know what's happening to Fred, but he's just changed. So you kind of get a little bit of that. So then you're like, okay, well maybe Then sometimes you basically say, all right, well maybe there's a big job coming, which is what happened to us in Columbia. So there was a big job that we bid on. We knew we could do the job without being in that market, right? But we knew it was going to be better if we did get into that market. Yeah. So when we were low bid on it, it was a pretty big job. So that was okay. That's the stepping stone for us to go into that market. So wow. So you can do it a bunch of different ways. Because just last year alone, we had one market that we went in basically organic with no work. And then when we went into Orangeburg, which is that 6th plant that we talked about, we did that last year as well. And we just picked up a really big job there. And that was kind of what allowed us to go into that market. So,
wow.
Yeah. So,
same question, but service as opposed to market, right? How do you make your decision on to add a new service? So I don't know when this article was from, but I read something you wrote about. We decided to start recycling concrete, and now you recycle it, you crush it. Yep. I don't know how it works specifically, but you can sell it to other contractors, but then you guys use that base on your own jobs as well.
That's right.
That seems like a large operation to, hey, we're now going to do this.
Yeah. So
how do you make that decision? How do you see like, oh, this is a profitable thing that we've never done?
Yep.
Why do I want to do it?
All right. So years ago, we got into the concrete business. Okay. In the concrete business, in the sense that we basically hired people on to go pour concrete. Okay.
Right.
And the reason we decided to do that was because some of our site work jobs that we had concrete on it.
Yeah.
And then when we first got into it, we were subcontracting it out.
Yeah.
So we said, oh, well, we can do this ourselves. So I just go hire a smart person who knows more about concrete than I do.
That's right.
He hires some people with him. They go start doing concrete. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what we learned is a lot of the concrete work that we have to do, especially on DOT projects, is repairing existing concrete. Okay, so now you've got an existing concrete in this area that's been broken, damaged somehow, whatever, and we have to tear that old concrete out, and we got to do something with it. Okay, well, if you basically take it to a landfill, they're going to charge you to take it. We're like, well, I don't want to do that, right? So we would take it to our own property and we would stockpile it there on our own property. Now, next thing you know, I've got this massive pile of old broken old concrete.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what am I going to do with that? Well, what people do is they'll crush it, right?
Right.
We're like, well, I don't want to hire somebody else to do it. I'll do it myself.
Okay.
So we bought crushers, and now we have sites at all of our facilities. So in Greer and in Columbia and in Bishopville and Florence and here, we have sites where we'll bring concrete, and we allow other people to bring clean concrete in as well.
Interesting.
And then what we have crushers that just move. They'll be here in Conway for a while. Then they're portable. Yes, and then they'll move to all the different locations. They'll process the concrete. They'll make crushed concrete, and then we'll either use them on our own sites, or we'll sell it, or we'll do whatever. And so, I mean, rather than that concrete going into a landfill and just filling some land, now we're processing, and 100% of it's recyclable. So it's just the same thing with asphalt. I mean, 100% of every ton of asphalt that goes down and is paved, we can recycle it 100%, reuse it right back into making new asphalt.
Wow.
Just like concrete. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's kind of how we got into the crushing of the concrete space.
Yeah, that is wild. I do want to ask one question about like if there's a deal or an acquisition of buying a bit, like if we can highlight that a little bit. I always do it if we want to, but one last question just about the business as a whole. I think making it through 30 years in heavy machinery or heavy construction is quite an accomplishment. What a lot of guys I think can get into construction, real estate, anything like. Sometimes there are low barriers to entry where you can start and you can bite off a little bit. But like you're saying, you can't do big jobs, right? A lot of guys don't make it forever, and most guys don't make it for 30 years. You see people come in and come out. What do you think, what are you really good at? Like, what is your competitive advantage? Or like, what did you say makes Palmetto stand out from other companies? Like, what do you guys do really, really well, or what do you even focus on? Like, hey, we don't cut corners in this because this is what helped. Like,
I mean, asphalt paving's that's our thing, right? But there's other people who do asphalt paving,
of course.
Yeah. But what I think we do really well is being flexible and being nimble and be willing to try other things, or maybe even going into markets. That's what's allowed me to kind of expand, and giving my employees a lot of autonomy to kind of do things the way they kind of want to do it. But I give them some rails, But for the most part, I try to stay out of it. I try to, allow these guys to basically, most of these guys are a whole lot smarter than I am at all the different little facets of things they do.
Right.
I just know a little bit about all of it, so I can interject, I can slide in, I can do this, but just let them do their thing, hire the people they want to hire, bring on who they want to bring on, and really reinvesting back in the business. I mean, that's the only way we've been able to expand and grow. There's so many people I see. Basically, they'll build a business, and then they're constantly, and it's successful, right? And they're making some money. Yeah. And they're constantly pulling out, buying toys, and they're constantly buying other houses, and they're doing this and all these other things. And if you don't reinvest back in one of your people, or reinvest back in the equipment, in our case, or reinvest into expanding and growing, you're never going to do it. I mean, you're going to always be strapped for cash. I mean, you know, it's one of those situations you've got to, and this is a very cash intense business. Obviously, I mean, the barriers of entry. I mean, if you want to set up a new operation, you know, an organic operation, you're going to probably spend $15 million just day one, just getting set up. You know, so if it's tough, you know, it's a tough barrier. And fortunately, because it's a tough barrier of entry, typically there's not as much competition. And you know, in any space, less competition, more opportunity. You know, that was, I don't know if my grandfather had that, foresight to understand. When he was patching driveways, and he knew, oh yeah, this is going to be a great thing. You know, I have no idea. You know,
Right.
I know when I first got in it, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
You know, but as we've grown and as we've expanded, I can see that there's, you know, the government. I mean, it's kind of one of those scenarios where the government's always going to be spending money on maintaining roads unless all of a sudden we have to start having flying cars or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's never a scenario where we get this huge boom of money. You know, it's never really like that. You know, kind of the real estate market. Okay, everybody's moving to South Carolina, so there's all these new houses need to be built.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, so we have more of kind of an up and a down, and you know, so it may drop 10, it may up 10, but it's going to stay. Mm-hmm. And when it's consistent like that, it's so much easier to manage. I mean, managing growth when you're trying to add on 1,000 people tomorrow is almost impossible. Yeah. But if you only need to add 10% or get rid of 10% or just that ebb and flow, so much easier to manage and so much easier to kind of handle. And unfortunately, we live in the Southeast. I mean, this is South Carolina. I mean, from the whole time I've been doing here, other than really that 2008 time frame, we've kind of consistently been growing here.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So I've been very fortunate to kind of, you know, be in a market. If I was in Connecticut, I probably wouldn't have the same growth.
Yeah.
You know, so just being here in the Southeast has been very helpful to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe we can chat about it at the very end, but like there's going to be a lot more markets that are going to need more work, right? With the amount of people that are coming down. And especially, I don't even know about new road construction because I think that some of that stuff takes years and years and years. But we're going to need a stronger infrastructure for the amount of population that we just get year over year, especially since like 2020 or 2019. Mm-hmm. So it's only going to be shaping up for you guys, hopefully.
Well, I mean, as long as the government keeps spending money on the roads, I think we'll be fine.
That's right.
Or let's put it this way: there'll be plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, you still got to win the work.
You still got to do it. You still got to, you still got to be a low bid on it. You still got to have the people that. I mean, you still got to have people that want to work for you. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that want to work. And there's plenty of people working today.
But everyone wants those people, though, and you're competing for those people.
So from a marketing standpoint, what we are really marketing is not to get more work. What we're marketing is that we want everybody that's out there that wants to work, we want them all working for us.
Yeah.
You know, and we want them all basically saying, wow, you know, the construction business, specifically the asphalt paving, that is the business we want to be in. Why? Because it's a great career and it's consistent and we can do well at it and we can support our family and it's a good business. You can, at the end of the day, you can see what you did, you know, and you can see that result. And if we can do that as an industry, we can continue to have people move into our business. And when we do that, it allows us to take advantage of all these opportunities that are out there. You know, from to your point, the fact that we're going to need to continue improving the roads, either building new ones and making the ones that are existing better, all that thing.
Yeah, fascinating. Mm-hmm. Do you have a deal or a project or acquisition that you want to talk about, or like?
Well, actually, I'll tell you a failure I had. How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah. So. I mentioned briefly in that upstate market we put in a bid to buy that existing company, and we were just outbid by a larger guy. He was willing to pay more for it than we were. You know, that's fair. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Well, also last year in that same market, a little I guess it would be it's a little area called Anderson, South Carolina, which is still kind of upstate, but you know, where we'd be situated in Greer. This plant, there was an existing family-owned business. A guy, his grandfather had been in the business since the '60s. Very similar story that I had. His father basically took over for him, and then this guy that I was dealing with, basically he took over for his dad, and literally our stories sounded so identical.
Yeah.
So for the last 18 months, I was basically working with this guy, convincing him. He had made a couple random comments to a mutual friend, I guess you'd say, and said, hey, I'm thinking about maybe selling. That guy reaches out to me. I in turn reach out to him, and literally spent 18 months dealing with this guy basically.
Recently?
Yes, this was last year.
Okay.
Yeah, and finally convinced him that, okay, yeah, Shawn, this is the right thing to do. I need to sell my business. I'm ready to retire. I don't really have a succession plan and we'll pass it down to. So yeah, this is what we need to do. And I think, man, your story's great. It just sounds just like mine. I think my people that work for me now would love working for you guys. So, but this was in fall of last year. He said, hey, but I've got some jobs under contract that I need to basically finish. I'll have them all finished by the end of the year, and then we'll close on this deal 1st of January. I said, we already agreed on terms, money, we had a signed letter of intent, everything was done. Yeah, it was fine with me. I didn't really need it at that point anyway. I had plenty going on. That last thing I needed was one more thing to deal with. And so end of the year comes. I'm communicating with him. I'd gone to dinner with him a couple of times. I don't want to say I took my eye off the ball, but kind of maybe I did a little bit. Yeah. So January comes, we're supposed to close in the first week of January. Our attorney was talking to their attorney, and all of a sudden, it kind of started getting a little silent. And they weren't responding back to emails as fast and one thing and another. And I'm calling the guy, and he's kind of, maybe calling me back later going, I can't really talk, just different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I kind of started, kind of seeing kind of what the writing on the wall was. And what had happened is the word had gotten out that he was selling. Okay, so some of the existing competitors that were in that market, okay, who did not want us to basically have that plant, said, hey, we'll buy it from you. Okay, so anyway, obviously what happened was those guys were willing to pay more than I was willing to pay, but the problem was he never came back to me. It was a scenario where we had a signed letter of intent, we had a signed contract on closing, and basically he said, well, somebody else is willing to pay me more, so I'm just going to go with them. And whereas I always felt like the right thing to do was say, hey man, listen, somebody's willing to pay more if you'll match their offer or pay me more or whatever, I'm willing to go, but we really never got that opportunity. And I guess my point is so my takeaway from it is that when I had the guy at a point where he wanted to sell, in the fall, I should have basically just went and closed on it, and I should have basically just done the deal, had it behind me. And if he wanted to work off some other projects, I could have gotten creative where, hey man, we'll work off those projects from you. Whatever profit we were going to make on them, I'll give you that profit. Whatever. I could have gotten a little bit more creative on how I did the deal to go ahead and get it finished, finalized, and closed, as opposed to letting that time go by and then somebody else kind of being able to swoop in and take the opportunity that I'd been working on for 18 months. So a little bit of a lesson learned. And because of that, we decided that, okay, well, since the existing competitors in that market, took over that manufacturing plant, that we just decided to stay out of that market for a little while.
Wow.
So, yeah. But, you live, you learn.
Always.
Yeah.
No one is exempt from making mistakes or even this deep into building an amazing company. 600 or however many people you have. You said you're going to have 1,000 next year. Mm-hmm. Your revenue's $500 million or more, whatever it may be. To still get stiffed on a deal like that, there's no one exempt from those things, which is kind of a crazy thing to hear over time too. Really, one or two last questions for you, but you've been doing this for so long. Is there anything you have it built, bought, or developed that you wanted to, or is there a line of service that you're like, hey man, obviously for competitive reasons you maybe don't have to answer it either, but anything that you haven't done that you really want to do, or is there a market that you're like, hey, we haven't gone here, but I want to? Is there anything that's just like, at some point I got to do this?
Yeah,
or want to?
Yeah, I play in some other spaces, from developing standpoint.
Right.
We'll buy some property and we'll develop it and we'll sell lots to, whoever, and we'll build houses. And these are all separate entities and separate things I have. But what I have learned though is that those things are nice and they can be profitable, if it's done right, and you do a good job of what you're doing and you understand that space.
Right.
But for the most part, I've actually really never been as profitable as I am in the space that I am and focusing on what unique? I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me now, it's about what happens next. Because next in the sense of transitioning from being a CEO to maybe passing it down to my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have two girls. One's 16 and one will be 14 this summer. So both of them will be in high school next year as a junior and a freshman. Wow. So for me, it's like, all right, well, how do I have this thing set up where I could basically pass it down to them, where they can just step in just like my grandfather did and like my dad did. Because it would be easy to sell the business. I mean, there are tons of people who will buy an operating company that has some success.
Absolutely.
I mean, in any space.
Absolutely.
So I could easily do that, but I don't think that's how I want to go about doing it. How I want to go about doing it is to take a functioning, operating, great business that has great employees and great people working for it that really love working here.
Yeah.
And then have my kids kind of step into the business and do the same thing that I've done. Maybe they want to continue growing, not just in South Carolina, but in all over the Southeast, or who knows what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a scenario that 10 years from now or whatever it is that they don't want to get in that space, then who knows what happens then. But for now, my focus is on how to build this and how to grow it and how to get it where it's a well-oiled machine, so that if I do pass it down to them, they can only just come in and make it easy for them so that they can take it and go take it to either another level.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Mm-hmm. So I actually have two more questions, and that's it. But where do you think you would bring them in at to start learning, right? Because you learned on the ground, your grandfather, your father learned on the ground doing the work, but at the end of the day, right, if you're going to make money, you need to learn how to be an operator, which management level, but also see it. And what would be a good place for them to come in at? Like, how would you get them oriented?
Odds of them, being out in the field and having a shovel and then be in the bottom of a ditch or putting it. Yeah, it's probably slim. Maybe they do it, as kind of a figurehead for a little bit there. Sure. But I'm sure it's not something they're going to want to do, every day. Yeah. But there's so many different facets of what we do. You know what I mean? From learning how to bid on work, how to estimate work. How to market what we do. From a human resources standpoint, how to grow our employees. You bring some employees in that are great hard workers, but maybe they need more people skills. So I think there's there's the accounting side, there's the finance side, understanding money, and how you go out and get more money. I mean, I think it really would kind of depend on what their interests are. If who knows? Maybe they want to be in the field. I mean, I have no idea. Yeah. So starting them in the field, maybe what their passion is. Maybe being in accounting is their passion. Maybe in marketing. Whatever. Maybe it's sales. Maybe they want to get out there and help drum up business for us. Mm-hmm. I think that's be more driven on them individually. I think you can be in a if you are smart and you're a hard worker, I think you can get in anywhere and ultimately be the person who runs the company. I don't think you necessarily have to be the guy running the company who has also held a shovel in the bottom of the ditch.
I agree. Yeah.
So I don't think that at all. As a matter of fact, the president of our company now, he never did that. So I think you can start anywhere and you can get to where you run the company. I mean, easily if you're a hard worker and willing to learn and have the mindset and the ability to be able to multitask and take on a bunch of different things at one time, because you got things coming from everywhere. So I think it's up to them where they want to go.
That's very cool.
And who knows? They may not want to be involved at all.
That's right. Right. Yeah. Time will tell.
That's right.
Last question for you. So knowing you a little bit, right, being a college athlete and just being a very competitive guy, what do you love most about the business? Like what gets you out of bed? What do you enjoy most about it? Is it putting a deal together? Is it a new acquisition? Is it getting a big project? Is it seeing someone sign a big contract or winning a bid? Like what's that in-game feeling of like, oh man, I love that? Do you have that?
I think it's a little bit of everything, right? So for example, I still enjoy, when we're estimating and we how it works here in South Carolina is the DOT says, hey, these are the bids they're bidding on, and all your bids have to be submitted by 2:00 on Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, and then we sit in there in the room and we submit the bids at 2:15 electronically. It goes in, or 2:00, and then literally by 2:15, basically you're sitting there refreshing, and basically the bids come in and like, oh yeah, man, we got those jobs. Yeah. So that's exciting to me.
That is cool.
Because oh man, we beat them by $100. Yeah, I enjoy that. Okay, but I also enjoy, as we've kind of grown and expanded, what are some potential opportunities? Like oh man, this guy's over here selling, right?
Yeah.
Let me get in and get to know that guy and see if I can convince him to sell to us as opposed to somebody. I enjoy that. But I also enjoy the small things like just here recently, we have an extremely large backlog of work and we need to add people as fast as we can, specifically paving crews. And sitting down in front of a paving foreman and trying to convince them that they need to maybe leave where they are today to come and work for me, and to get that call back and say, yeah, okay, man, I decided that I'm gonna come work for you guys. So that type of thing I get excited about as well. So I think there's a little bit of everything. You take those little wins here and there, and that what kind of gets you excited. Because my day is pretty. I get up, I'm here every day, and I'm excited about what the new thing is. There's you hate to get the calls where you had a major accident or somebody got hurt, or you hate to have that stuff, or a job, a piece of equipment broke down today, and so the whole job had to stop. You get that type of thing all the time.
Yeah.
So having the ability to be able to manage the negatives and the downside things. And really focus on those wins that you get every day. And in my theory on, as long as I have more wins today than I had failures today, then it was a good successful day.
Yeah.
So you really have to focus, because I could sit at home and stare at the walls all day long, and if I just focused on nothing but the negative, because I promise you, with this many people running around and this many pieces of equipment and this much liability we have out there, I could focus on the negatives and it would drive myself crazy, and I'd want to get out of the business as fast as I could.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is just focus on more of the positive sides of things.
Yeah.
And if I do that, I feel like, those are the wins that kind of get me up the next day.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. That's a great spot to end. This was a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on, Shawn.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.